So let's start with your overall observations, and you've got an update on the top 10 players in the comp.
Yeah, so as we do every 4 weeks, we'll just do a rolling update for our top 10 players, so everyone can stay across that and jump in and have their own thoughts as to their agreements or disagreements, if you like.
Before you go, I heard you
what have I done here?
entertain a group of people last Friday with your 10 most overrated players. Is that all off-air stuff, or is it?
No, we did the overrated and underrated. I reckon did that a few weeks back.
Okay, well, we might have an update on that at some stage.
So as we sit at the end of round 16, we have a new number 1 rated player in the competition.
Okay. Guess who, Kane?
Should be pretty straightforward, I think, this one. He's overtaken
Trips?
Isaac Heaney.
I would think the Bont.
Yeah, the Bont.
Yes,
yeah.
no, Kane is on the money. So the Bont is back to number 1 in the competition. Ridiculous what he is doing at the moment.
Is he in front of the Brownlow, do you think, Kane? Has he caught Heaney and gone past or not?
Honestly, I'd love to see him win the Brownlow. I don't think there's a player more deserving of a Brownlow than him that hasn't won one. And for the rest of them, I mean, Heaney is not in that category as Bontempelli in terms of the body of work. He would be a popular winner. But I think the rest of them, they're all young, and they're going to have their time. Like Dacos is going to have his time. Goulden, I think's the same. Warner's the same. And there's a lot of Caleb Sarong and the like on the different level probably underneath. But Bont doesn't have a whole lot of time left.
No.
I'm not retiring him in the next 5 or so years, but in terms of the role that he's playing, it's probably in the next 2 or 3 years that he's got his opportunity to win one, and this is as good as ever.
Yep. So then Isaac Heaney is still number 2. Just a little bit of a watch on Isaac. Last 2 months of the season, 53rd in the comp. So still going well, but it was always a bit unrealistic to go at the levels that he was going at in the first 2 months of the year.
Goal kicking, he's dropped that off?
Oh, a little bit of everything. So, obviously top 50 or thereabouts over the last 2 months is still a very good footballer. It's just not at the levels that he was doing first 7 weeks of the year.
What about Warner? How far has he dropped?
No, Warner's still going okay. A little bit inconsistent, Chad, but still going very well, having a very good season. Number 3 is Isaac Rankin, absolutely flying at the moment. Keep pumping up this guy, and we'll keep singing his praises. Max Holmes at number 4. Christian Petrarca, unfortunately for Christian, won't be here too much longer. Probably won't be here in our round 20 edition. He's number 5 in the competition. Number 6, Nick Blakey. How good was he on Saturday? Unbelievable. His performance on the weekend.
Is that his best ever game?
No, not his best ever game, but one of his better games. He's had a lot of them.
He's had a lot of them.
Best ever quarters?
Yeah. That last quarter was one of his highest rated ever quarters. It's
interesting, Hoyne, because we spoke some time ago about the clutch players, and I asked you to do some homework on that, and you did, and you named those players that are clutch. That was almost the clutch performance of the season, really, when the other midfielders were well held, and when the game was on the line, value for touch, the goal that he kicked, I mean, that was
just needed clutch. Logan McDonald to kick that goal, and it would have gone down in history.
One of the better kicks of all time. But Nick Dacos, we talked about him in the last edition of these. He's coming with a bullet and continues to come with a bullet. He is there at number 7. Bailey Dale, always been high up in our rating system for the aggressiveness and the elite ball use that he's got. He's at number 8. Likewise with Dan Houston, he's always high up in our rating system. Number 9 in the comp. And this guy is flying at the moment, Jack Sinclair, number 10 in the competition.
Good on the weekend.
His last 2 months have been absolutely brilliant after a slow start. So can I just do one a little bit further as well, just to put these guys on watch at the moment for how well they're going. So this is over the last 2 months. So this is since round 8. So TDK, so Tom DeConnie, second best player in the competition.
Amazing things.
Jeremy McGovern, 4th best player in the comp. Sam Flanders, number 9. Hayden Young, number 11.
Yeah.
And Noah Anderson, number 13, coming with a bullet. Those 5, so they could potentially be in the round 20 edition of the top 10 players in the competition.
I was wondering if I can ask a question and you can park it for later on. But the players who have the biggest gulf of their rating at home versus their rating away, I suspect Noah Anderson would be one of those that has the biggest difference in that. But I know you track that, Hoyney, so I'll get you to look up that for me a little bit later on in the program, as well as anyone else who wants to send through a question on 0433 90 11 16 as we get into these 7 main talking points. How important has centre bounces become?
I just want to have this discussion around a potential new player we could see evolve in the competition. And I'm going to call this player the CBD. And we're not talking the central business district.
I thought we were talking centre bounce dominance.
No, we are talking the centre bounce defender.
Okay.
So I'm always fascinated around what coaches do at different stages throughout a campaign, and what Geelong were able to do with Tom Stewart on the weekend. It clearly had enormous success for what they were able to orchestrate behind the footy and then to actually start to get him involved. 23 disposals. He was involved in 24 centre bounces. Did not win one disposal inside forward 50. They had 56 entries. He was not there. Did not win one of his 23 inside the forward 50. 16 of the 23 came centre back.
So he played the same role, just started out of
got
the
back.
centre.
He took 4 intercept marks on the weekend from playing 98% midfield time. To put that into comparison, no midfielder has done that in 4 years. And only 2 other midfielders over the last decade have done that in a game by taking 4 intercept marks.
So clever coaching. Get rid of the tagger by starting in the middle and then doing the same role.
So I just look at this and I just wonder, we talked a lot about the Dusty role 8 years ago. Yeah. Right? The centre forward midfielder. 8 years ago. And it took the competition 12 months, 18 months to work it out. And now we look at all the guns and they all do it. Dusty, Petrarca, Dangerfield, Bont, all these guys, they all centre forward. Fair enough. Could this be the next evolution of the centre? The centre
CBD.
The CBD. The centre bounce defender. So, you get him back. And what this one magnet change did for Geelong, and I'm interested to have this conversation with the two of you, right? So everyone in Australia would have thought that Matt Guelphy is going straight to Tom Stewart if Tom Stewart plays the role that he's played for these 6-7 years of his career.
Kyle Langford on the Sunday Footy Show, and they said that he was set for him. He was ready to go.
Yep. So then clearly that's going to happen. Now Tom goes into the centre bounce. That doesn't happen. Zach Toohey plays the role of Tom Stewart. Zach Toohey does not get the Matt Guelphy tag. Zach Toohey plays the role that Tom Stewart's played for the first 7 weeks of the year. Geelong's defensive profile, rock solid for the first time in 6-7 weeks. Do you tag the player? Do you tag the role?
The player.
And that's why I think it's a fascinating conversation. I don't know what's right or not.
Well, why can't you just wait for Tom Stewart to do the centre bounce and then Guelphy just goes up? Now that you know that Tom Stewart isn't playing as a midfielder, he's playing as a centre back player who's really only starting in centre bounce to free himself up to be the interceptor and play the exact same role. The only difference is his starting position, and just send Guelphy straight to him after the centre bounce like other taggers do with other midfielders.
Yeah, and that absolutely might happen moving forward. But then just purely using that one example on the weekend, that was the first time in 7 weeks Geelong have got what they want behind the footy, and it did not involve Tom Stewart getting tagged.
That's why he's the smartest man in footy, Hoyney.
So the Zach. I don't know what you thought, Kane, but this defensive profile has been a mess for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. To see Zach Toohey behind the footy by himself, you're sitting back watching this game going, there you go. They've got what they want for the first time in 7 weeks. They've been the worst defensive 50 in the competition for 7 weeks by not getting what they want. Essendon have 60 entries and they concede a score from 1 in every 4 of them. I just look at that and I just go, I'm fascinated by this CBD component. So Stewart's going to do that again this week. Then how do they handle Stewart? Or how do clubs handle the Zach Toohey role? And do they look at tagging the role or tagging the player moving forward?
And do they try and implement it themselves? Do they look for other people who are picking up on your intel and saying, okay, that's a good idea, we may try that as well? These halfbacks that are getting tagged.
So just think of this, and me and Kingy talk a lot about this, the midfield intercept game. That is 40% of your scoring.
Yeah.
Tom Stewart has been the best player in terms of scoreboard return in this area of the ground by a mile over the last 5 years. And he was that player again to start the season. He had not generated a score from his midfield intercepts in 3 of the last 4 weeks. Against Essendon, has 4 of them. Geelong score 3 times.
Their
game was back.
It's a magnificent pickup. It honestly is.
It's a good start from Hoyney.
It's a great start from Hoyney. So we'll move from the centre bounce defender and Tom Stewart and the new role that he's played to the Blues. Hoyney, that Gerard has called them the new flag favourites on Monday. Why are they going so
well? Flying and building like a premier has built for many a year. I think back to what Melbourne did in 21, what Geelong did in 22, what Richmond made a habit of in their campaigns. And right now, it's just like if you're a Carlton supporter, I don't know if you could be any more excited. You're almost just wishing to just fast forward to September and just get through the next 8 weeks because what they're doing at the moment, offensively, it's the second best profile in the competition. Defensively, it's the best profile.
Alan down at Tommy Ruffs is just ecstatic at the moment.
Yeah. And so we know that they're going well, and we know that they're flying and they're doing a lot right. This midfield's going well. Paddy Cripps is just in ridiculous form. I just want to put someone else on the agenda if I can, and just highlight the role that Lachie Cowan is playing in this defensive group at the moment. And it's always interesting when a team gets to their bye period, and that's really the first opportunity to actually sit back and properly dissect your own profile in depth and what's actually happened so far. So Carlton get to their bye period, have a 10-day, 2-week period off, whatever it is. Lachie Cowan's first game back post-bye follows Brian Myers all over the ground on the Friday night and basically limits Brian Myers' impact. Literally to the point where Brian's coming off and Lachie Cowan's coming straight off with him. It was like watching a midfield tag, but it was only watching it across the half-forward line. Then you fast forward to Sunday, and the first quarter when Shai Bolton is pretty much playing as a forward, Lachie Cowan goes straight to Shai Bolton, having very little impact in that stage of the game. He gets thrown in the midfield. Liam Baker then gets thrown forward. Lachie Cowan goes straight to Liam Baker, looks after him, controls him. We saw what Liam Baker was able to do against Adelaide in that game on a Thursday night a couple of weeks back. Pretty much, was one of the main reasons why they win a game. So then you ask why they're going well and why they're getting better. It's a guy like this that is now playing a really important role. And you fast forward, they're going to be their prelim final night. So will this player be able to look after a Chad Warner when he comes into that forward half of the ground and take care of him? We see what Bont's doing at the moment, and Bont's charging forward and having unbelievable impact. Can this guy take a Bontempelli? We're seeing what De Goey has done in a finals campaign. His finals record's superb. Can this guy take care of Jordan De Goey when he goes ahead of the footy? So now to be able to have that player, I don't know if they've actually had that player before, but what he's doing at the moment as a young kid, he's going exceptionally well at the moment. I just wanted to give him some praise for his performances.
Nice work. The Blues uncovering another one. Hoyney, has a player ever had 41 possessions before and never got a coach's vote?
Good question. I've got Lockie Whitfield in the gun actually a little bit later on.
We'll wait for that. Okay, Collingwood's next on the agenda.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, when you were away, G, me and Kane had a conversation, and I said they could potentially be going better than what they were last year, and at around round 10, round 11, their profile was through the roof, and you're sitting there going, geez, this team's just sitting there perfectly with an injury list. That personnel's going to come back. Just at the moment, over the last 6-week period, they've just got a couple of concerns that are very un-Collingwood-like that we have not seen under the Craig McRae, regime. They've always been so strong behind the footy in terms of their defensive profile. Their defensive profile in 2022 was the 4th best in the competition. Last year, the 5th best in the competition. First 10 weeks of the year, the 4th best in the competition, sitting there beautifully.
Recently?
And now recently, over the last, sort of 6 weeks or so, it's 13th in the comp. And one of those things,
individuals or is it team?
It's a team. It's a team thing to start. So one of the things that you could probably link yourself to Collingwood is that you just see high chaos in their games between and the ball pings between the arcs. They're happy to cough it up, but they'll win it back through manic pressure and get that game sort of going. In terms of being able to win the ball back between the arcs, in 2022 they did it the second most of any team, 4th most of any team last year when they won the flag, 3rd most to start this season. Now, over the last 6 weeks, they're doing it the second least of any team in the competition. And I look at there's a lot of reasons as to why, and I just wonder whether or not they could look at trying to free someone up, potentially as this CBD player, like a Tom Stewart, to actually try and get back to actually start winning the ball across that
Darcy
defensive
Moore do
midfield.
it. Hoyney, I've had some strong thoughts on Darcy Moore this week. Some have disagreed a lot with me, but I would like your thoughts on him briefly.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you, Kane. I think he's been, I don't think he's been the same player that he was in 2022. 2022 was his best year. Last year, and he's heading into the final, he was only just going last year, and this year he's only just going. So the other one is only just going, Kane, if I can just put that in, is Isaac Quainer. As well. So to potentially free him up to actually help in this aspect of the game. So they've just got a couple of little things to tidy up on that we'll just put on watch over the next couple of weeks.
He's in the house with some absolute gold. He's also named his top 10 rated players. An update on that, you can check that out online. Quickly, the clue for Guess Who?
Okay, last 6 weeks, the best defensive profiles in the competition. Carlton, Sydney, and who?
We're up to Guess Who, and it was who has the third best defensive profile in the last 6 weeks. Gerard's guess was North Melbourne, which was a good guess. A lot of love for the Hawks. Who else is getting some love? Freo, Brisbane, the Western Bulldogs, the Saints. Without looking at any sort of fixture, Hoyney, my guess would be, I know they got scored heavily against Brisbane, but I'm going to say the Saints.
The Saints, no, and North Melbourne, very left field. Gee, I like when you go
You're
left
usually
field.
Left field, that's what you do.
I like it, but no, it's not. It's not North, and it's not the Saints, but it is someone that's around that ladder position, and that is the team over your way, Kane, the Adelaide Crows.
Really?
Have the equal best defensive profile of anyone, along with Carlton and Sydney over the last 6 weeks. So, in terms of when their oppo win possession of the footy, at the moment, they are the second hardest team in the comp to score against. When the oppo do go inside Adelaide's defensive 50, they are the hardest team to score against. And then when the oppo are trying to move the ball from one end of the ground to the other, they are the fourth hardest team in the competition to move the ball against. So, and then, we talk a lot about the turnover game. Currently, when Adelaide cough the ball up, they are still the second hardest team in the competition to score against. So, and I think, it's credit to Matty Nix as well. This is one of, I think it was the second or third time this year on the weekend where they had Butts, Murray and Kane playing together.
Yeah, Murray's a big addition
behind the footy.
Yep.
So, and I think that's the interesting component around this is that what he can do now with these three behind there. A shout out to Kane. I couldn't believe this when I actually found this, and I hope I'm not being disrespectful, but since round 8, Mark Kane's the fourth best interceptor in the competition. Which is, I don't think anyone in their right mind at the start of the year could have thought that he would be a top 4, top 5 interceptor over a 2-month period.
It's a big loss for his original team.
Yeah, but I don't know if anyone in their right mind could have seen him doing what he's doing. So more hats off to the Adelaide development staff over there to actually get this guy doing.
So Hoyney, so my counter question is all that is terrific.
Yep.
Why are they 14th on the table right now? What has broken down with their game to have them in this position? So
then their ability to be able to get out of their defensive 50 offensively and go from one end of the ground to the other is 18th in the competition. Right. So this is the next evolution of this defensive group, is that right now, defensively, rock solid, as we just said. How do they then get this offensive game going and actually try and inject, other than Mitch Hinge at the moment, who's going really well, and we've spoken about him quite a bit this year, there isn't really too much offensive power behind there. As good as what Mark Kane is at actually intercepting and winning it back, I don't know if we can sit here and look at it and go, he's damaging with ball in hand to be able to really...
It was a strength of theirs last year, for memory.
Yeah, it was. So how do they get this back up and going? Because their forward 50 is functioning the third best in the competition.
Are you a buyer for next year, Hoyney? Are you a buyer on what they could do?
I'm a buyer in terms of how they're playing. I'm not a buyer in terms of their list. I think their list still has a fair bit of work to go.
What about the captain going behind the ball again to sort that out?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah,
absolutely.
CBD. Could be a CBD.
Yep.
Could be a CBD. Rankin is their centre forward player. He could be their CBD.
All right, let's move on to the Hawks, Hoyney.
Yeah, so rightly so. A lot of people had Hawthorn in there for the Guess Who as one of the best defensive profiles in the competition, and they do have one of the best defensive profiles in the game. So over the last 2 months, so since round 8, they are conceding 68 points a game at the moment. No team in the competition other than them in that time is conceding under 73 points a game. Their ability to defend turnover is the third best in the competition. Their ability to defend ball movement across that counter punch area of the game is the best in the competition, and they've only given up 50 entries or more over the last 8 weeks. I've only given up 50 entries or more once.
Jeez.
Which is so this
stingy Hawks.
Yeah, so this back six, back seven is getting looked after extremely well by what this midfield group is doing and their ability to be able to spread out from contests. We've spoken about that at length throughout this year. But then their ability to be able to sort of protect their, back six, back seven has been a real strength. And I don't know, and maybe I shouldn't get as frustrated as what I do, but like James Sicily just does what he wants to do.
Doesn't get tagged
more often than not, and like you see, clearly
I read him earlier in the season. And
Matt Guelphy was round one. Oh, name me another time.
Yeah.
That he's been looked after.
I thought it was
so
the
round
first
two.
Few rounds
round two, and Sam Mitchell, full credit to him. No, you're going to go to Bailey Fritsch round two. We're not going to put up with this.
Yeah.
You're going to go to Bailey Fritsch round two, and then from there on in, like you go through his matchups this year, he hasn't really had a dedicated matchup of any substance since the Matt Guelphy. Sort of move round one, and I don't think I don't think that you're going to see anything from Geelong this week that's probably going to be anything different. But he is a top 25 player in the competition at the moment. He's the number one key defender in the competition now.
He's jumped up.
So if we're doing our All-Australian team 7 days later, he would be in there.
He'd be number two.
So, and I still think it's Jeremy McGovern, right, number two in the competition. So as a collective, they're going extremely well. Saturday afternoon's a cracking game against.
Do they make the finals, Hoyney?
I think they're every chance to make the finals with what's going on at the moment.
He's a genius, that coach, Kane.
He goes all right. He's all right.
Genius.
Jared, no, they're on the right track. They've equalled the games that they won last year, and I think Hawthorn fans will be pretty pumped. What did you make, Gerard, of the aggressive nature, just as we step away from Horney's numbers for a moment, of Sam Mitchell jumping on a plane with Dylan Moore, reminiscent of what Geelong did for Travis Boak all those years ago? Do you like that?
Yeah, I think he's pretty forthright. Good luck to him. I don't think he's the only coach that's done it. He might be the second one that got caught, but good luck to him. I mean, he's building something. He's confident. He's impatient, and you can see that going right through the whole organisation right now and on the field.
Hoyney's, Gerard's been big on the Fremantle Dockers for a long time now, and I think the rest of us are starting to take them seriously. How could you not after what they did on the weekend? Yeah,
credit, G, to the Fremantle conversation. So over the last 6 weeks, this is probably the most pleasing aspect in terms of what they're actually doing with the footy. So offensively, they had the 5th best profile in the competition at the moment, and the boys on Fox on Sunday showed their ability to be able to punish off turnover at the moment is the 2nd best in the competition, despite only winning the ball back the least of any team in the competition. They've been able to generate the 3rd most points of any team off the back of that. And again, to continue the Sicily conversation, and and I know as an industry we're starting to have this conversation around Luke Ryan. So Luke Ryan over the last 6 weeks, number 3 in the competition at turning intercepts into scoreboard points.
Right.
That has been Tom Stewart for 5.5 years.
Yeah.
Like, this guy needs the attention. And I know Gary's been massive on it as well, and I think he's absolutely spot on. But just with the Fremantle conversation, I don't want to be too negative here, but I'm going to throw in a but. Right? So they are going really well. I'm not buying this profile from a prelim perspective.
Still not.
Nah. At the moment.
Okay.
So offensively, it's great. We're seeing it, right? Defensively, it's the 4th worst profile in the competition. This is why it's so hard to challenge and be a legitimate flag contender, to get that balance right.
Where they got it wrong.
So far, so often under the Longmuir regime, they've been really strong defensively. We've all looked at it and going, okay, like how do you open yourself up offensively to actually be a real threat? Well, they've done that, so hats off to that. But it's come at a cost in terms of what they're doing without the footy. So think of Carlton and Sydney, who I think everyone in their right mind would have them as a clear 2 favourites at the moment. They have both ticked off. Fremantle are miles away from that in terms of what they're doing defensively. And the but is around the importance and the degree of importance that Fremantle has on the clearance game. So right now, across the year, they're plus 133 raw clearance differential between them and their oppo.
Yep.
That's the 2nd best clearance return we've seen by any team in any year at this stage of of the season. So hats off to it. But if that gets to anywhere near anywhere near it, they are in big strife because behind the footy, that is where they're vulnerable.
They can't defend clearance.
They are the second easiest team to punish against off clearance. And I keep talking about the clearance situation. That is where the talent comes into it, both offensively and defensively. From a talent point of view, defensively, over to your defensive group to defend for your life for 15 seconds before the system then comes into play to protect you, which is what Justin Longmuir is brilliant at, is getting that orchestrated. But for that 15 seconds where you can't get that orchestrated, that is vulnerable. Since round 4, only 3 times have they been anywhere near to break even. They've only lost it once against Collingwood, and Collingwood should have absolutely won that game of footy with a heap of injuries that they had under their belt over in WA. Sydney 2 months ago, inaccuracy hurt Freo as well, but Sydney broke even with them in that game, and the Dogs got close to breaking even with them, and we saw what happened with the scoreboard. 60 to 70 points. It's just something that I don't know that you want to be so reliable on. If you fast track to prelim final, Carlton are going to be there, Sydney are going to be there. Will they be able to get a Carlton
Who else is
midfield
going
like
to be
that?
there?
That's my question.
Who
Good
else
point.
is going to be there?
Well, this is the thing. I don't know, and that's where I look
Look
at
into the
it.
computer, always knows everything.
I actually couldn't tell you. Like I'm big on Collingwood, and I think Collingwood will gather themselves and
Brisbane.
Brisbane, I'm big on offensively, but Brisbane, in terms of what they're doing defensively, that's not going to challenge a prelim final win.
Dogs.
The Dogs are there, but I don't know if their defensive profile is going to challenge a prelim.
They got a new defender.
Right now,
They've got a new defender. Give him time.
Yeah, we've listened to Kane. We're not too sure yet, though, are we? We're just
We're
going to hold
not
on.
ready to anoint Laurie Lobb as the next Glenn
I saw
Jakovich,
he got 7 coaches' votes. A bloody good start.
We're just
It's
going
a
to hold
good
on.
start.
So-
All he's done is earn the right to start there again next week, but I'm not fully
I'm backing him in.
and trusting
So,
on Rory Lobb.
I think that there are a lot of teams that are reasonable, but like we're sitting here with a lot of teams at the moment. We're talking about can they win a prelim.
Yeah.
At the moment, I've only got confidence that 2 can win a prelim.
The top 2.
Yep. At the
Makes it
moment,
an
we're
interesting
2
back
months
half of
away.
the year.
Yeah.
He's been strong tonight, Hoyney.
All right, let's move on
Trying
to
to
the
have a bit of
Giants.
fun, don't we?
They're
Don't
your
we,
last
Jeff?
of your 7 that you wanted to chat. What's gone wrong?
Well, no, so team-wise and performance-wise, we know what's happening at the moment. Offensively, it's just broken in terms of what they're doing.
Who's this?
GWS.
Okay.
They're just broken in terms of what they're actually doing.
Yep.
At the moment, but I just wanted to have the broader conversation with the two of you just around the talent of the list. And is it as talented as we thought?
Because very talented. I think they need another mid.
Because right now
Speedy mid.
Right now they've only got the 5 players in the top 110 in the comp.
Yep.
Right.
So are they?
So Josh Kelly, and now he's out for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That's just an enormous blow.
Yeah.
Brent Daniels, Harry Himmelberg, Jack Buckley, and I can't
Taylor?
think. No, Taylor's not there at the moment. I can't think of the other one off the top of my head, but I'll come back to you. But so at the start, I don't think right now they're not a threat to win a prelim. Right? So we just fast forward and just have the conversation around how does round 1 2025 look.
Can I just ask, just for a comparison, because some would say 5 in the top 100. What does that mean? How many does Sydney have?
So you compare yourself to Carlton and Sydney. Carlton and Sydney have around about that 8 to 9 in that area, and I don't want to be harsh, but I mean that's what the whole competition is comparing yourself to at the moment is Carlton and Sydney. Right? And that's where we would have thought GWS would have been. So you start round 1 2025 and just fast forward. Kelly, Hogan, Whitfield, Canelio, and Toby Green will all start next year's campaign 30 plus. Right? So then, I'm
not scared about that.
No, and I'm not, and I'm big. I had this conversation around the age. I think that the age is. I think the comp is getting older. Players are getting older. I'm not necessarily.
30's the old 27,
correct. I'm not looking at the 30. I'm more just having the conversation around. They need to get something soon with this talent. Like those five have still got another 2-3 years of elite footy in them. But it's not as if I'm looking at this group going, if they don't have success in 24, it's okay. They're still young and all that. They are young, but their guns are now hitting to the stage where they've only got another 24 to 36 months left
Yep.
to be able to cash in with that group. And people ask you, like, what's happened? Well, the reality is that their 3 best players last year heading into that September campaign. Lockie Whitfield was the 23rd best player last year. He's now outside the top 110 in the competition, outside the top 120, in fact. Toby Green last year was inside the top 15. He's outside the top 140
he's had
in
a
the
really
comp.
poor year.
And Sam Taylor last year, we could not have sung Sam Taylor's praises any higher. He was 18th in the comp last year. He's now 120th
And injured.
in the competition. So people will tell you, he's been, but this takes into account. We just don't worry about that. So, Lockie Whitfield's game on the weekend, you get back to this is
41 touches.
This is where we talk about it, Kane, all the time. Is this the impact? I can't remember a player who had 41 disposals and was the 34th rated player on the ground.
You know why, Hoyney? Because he had 16 kickouts to himself.
There we
why
go.
You need to change the stats and make that a spoil and not a kick.
That's why I couldn't tell. I could tell you where he rated, Kane. I couldn't tell you how many
16.
kick-ins he had.
16.
I couldn't care less. But
16 to 41.
That's there you go. 16. I knew he'd have a
But
reason.
he only had four score involvements, and that was the flag for me.
Yeah. So that's there's just more of a bigger picture discussion around
Okay.
GWS.
Finn Callaghan needs to come through.
Yeah, only just going.
Big time.
You
At the moment.
concerned, Gerard? Have you got a slight concern?
I've got a concern that he's not coming through because I think he's potentially an All-Australian. I mean, I've seen his best. It's awesome, but I don't see it often enough.
Have you, Kane?
No, I see him to be a little bit fumbly, would be my observations of him. The critical contest, at times, I think he's far too double grabbish.
Okay.
And sometimes his decision-making, I think, lets him down. At his best, he looks a beautiful player, but is he one of those players that looks magnificent, but looks good but doesn't perform
Still
as
youngish,
consistently as he should. He's really, really young, and
he is.
I've met him a couple of times. He's a terrific young kid. I think he works extremely hard at his game, and I'm confident he will, but I think it's right to have just a slight question mark on whether he can be the elite player, the Josh Kelly that we think he is going to be. So, Hoyney, who did the coaches miss?
Yeah, so Friday night, Brandon Starcevich, third highest rated player on the ground, didn't get a vote, career high game, and he was not responsible for what Cosy Pickett did on the weekend, more what Darcy Wilmot and Connor McKenna did in that game. So did well, going along quite well. Tom Papley on the weekend, highest rated player on the ground, didn't get a vote. Harry Sheasel, absolutely, keep talking about this bloke, third highest rated player, didn't get a vote. Sam Collins flying. We keep talking about him on this show.
Even though his ratings dropped down.
Yep, second highest rated player on the ground. Didn't get a vote. Second best game of his season. And Jack Bowes just having a sneaky good season in the wet.
Good
actually,
pick up from Mackie.
His 3 best games this season have been all in wet conditions.
Oh, he's the new.
So he'll be hoping that it rains for the next 8 weeks of the season.
Can you remember the great Billy Nettlefold?
Gerard, please. Who's that?
He was a wet tracker. A wet tracker. Came from North, went to Melbourne. He was
Kane, do you know who that is?
I don't know.
He was one of your mob, Kane. He's one of the original taggers.
Never heard of the bloke.
Jimmy Bartell springs to mind as the best wet weather player that I've ever seen. Who was the most damaging player for the round?
So Paddy Cripps makes damaging player for the round. Phenomenal. He's second best game of the year. From a ball use perspective, Dylan Moore had a fantastic season. Top 40 player across the competition.
Flying.
Ball winning, none other than the Bont on the weekend, dominated in that phase of the game. And then Tom McDonald on the weekend, 15 spoils. Majority of them were actually quite effective as well. That was the second best defensive performance we've seen by any player in a game this season.
And in 30 seconds, your gem and your horror.
So Melbourne, we talked about, and they're back to playing straight line footy. Went long down the line 75% of the time on the weekend. Most by any team in the game this year. St Kilda, Ross mentioned their stoppage work. 30 points in 3 weeks from stoppage. That's the St Kilda's worst ever 3-game streak.
What about their ball movement, Hoyney?
Ball movement's going okay, just can't convert when they go inside forward 50.